Superman season is here and the buzz is undeniably high, but not everyone in the DC fandom is excited about that. There is a group of DC fans who hate this Superman film before it has come out or hopes it fails. Many of them want the film to be received poorly and they want it to financially fail. James Gunn, love him or hate him, is a polarizing figure based on his back and forth with leakers, his very public persona, and his being involved in the marketing himself. But he's also the director of the wildly popular Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and well-received Suicide Squad film, which has to be said was not a financial success. James Gunn's DC universe means the end of the Snyderverse and a farewell to the DCEU. For those looking for Justice League 2 and 3, this is detrimental, and many in the Restore the Snyderverse movement are unhappy with the tone and direction of the new DC universe, also known as the DCU. The leader and most outspoken in my opinion is Aaron Fischer of my review, Aaron Fischer. Among those most enthusiastic, I believe SLAV from SLAV's Free Talk is at the forefront of the pumped up crowd. They are not fans of each other and have had many public arguments, both on video and on X. Personally, I love it. When you think of classic broadcasts, many times it includes feuds. Howard Stern and Don Imus, Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly, Donald Trump and Rosie O'Donnell. It's great TV and it's great YouTube. Sadly, they basically agree not to mention each other on video, but I hope that changes as long as they can agree not to go personal. I'm a fan of both channels. I'm literally subscribed to both. But personally, I'm excited for Superman. However, I'm a huge fan of the Snyderverse films to the point I created a motion comic based on Zack Snyder's storyboards for Justice League 2 and 3. That's how much of a fan I am of that work, and I would love to see the end of that series. But at the same time, I'm a fan of James Gunn's work, and as long as the movie doesn't fall into the trap of being a comedy, I have high hopes. My review, Aaron Fischer, is a channel that has gotten a lot of momentum this past year. He's a talented voice actor, so he understands the industry and is a lifelong DC Comics fan. Forgive me if I am wrong about a nuance, but I will do my best to portray his arguments. He believes James Gunn's and Safran's influence on Aquaman 2, The Flash, and other projects is what ruined them. Before studio influence, it is factual that Aquaman 2 was going to feature a larger role from Ben Affleck's Batman. The Flash was tonally different and was going to have an end with Michael Keaton's Batman at the courthouse scene, as well as Flash receiving a message from Ben Affleck's Batman. Not to mention, many of these changes resulted in bloated budgets. Aaron blames the studio for Ben Affleck's Batman film not happening, which of course is pre-James Gunn. This movie of course would have featured Deathstroke as the villain. He thinks Warner Brothers fundamentally doesn't understand DC characters and believes James Gunn does not respect superheroes. He uses Peacemaker as an example of not respecting the properties. SLAV, who you will hear from shortly, is excited for the future of the DC universe. He and Aaron take shots at each other all the time, which like I said, I enjoy. Like many who have already purchased tickets, he thinks the trailers delivered, believes the marketing has worked, and is prepared to enjoy what he believes will be a good Superman movie. Now let's hear from the man himself explain hatred for the Superman movie.
I want to talk about a rivalry that you have had on YouTube, on X, with a certain YouTuber named Aaron Fischer. Now this is the preface. I am a fan of both of your channels. I actually, like I indicated privately, I discovered your channel at the height of your beef with him. He was basically, you were Voldemort. He wouldn't call you by name. So it was like detective work to try to figure out who is this guy that's causing such a flutter on his page and his community. And it was very exciting to try to narrow it down. And eventually I discovered you. And I just wanted to hear the other side of the debacle that he was in. And I really ended up enjoying your page. Now, the reason why I like Aaron Fischer is, first off, he's a very talented voice actor. I recommend everyone to check out his demo reel. The range is really impressive. I actually think he would do well in animation. I don't know if he ever has, but he does some really nice work. I think he's a very analytical person. He has very deep-seated knowledge in DC. He truly is a Snyder fan, big fan of those movies. And James Gunn is a complicated figure. Now, I would say I am maybe 70% in favor and 30% I disagree with him. So the first one is Henry Cavill's departure, I think, could have been cleaner. Henry was given a verbal agreement, and in my world, I think verbal agreements do mean something. So when James Gunn said, well, he was never hired, and you're talking about legal work and paperwork, I thought there was a better way to handle that departure. I wish he would have just said, look, we're going in a completely different direction. I'd love to work with him again in the future, but not as Superman in the moment. Just be honest, be straightforward, and take it like a man versus, the way he did it. My second issue with him was the way him and Zaslav changed the endings of Flash, Aquaman 2, and several other movies at the end of the DCEU, where Aquaman 2 was supposed to be a movie that featured a lot of Batman. Like, Batman was going to be in Aquaman 2 a lot of the film. That sounded very exciting, but my understanding was all of that was removed and major changes were made, so people were not looking forward to a future that was not happening. So that's my disagreements with James Gunn, but my agreements with James Gunn is, one, the DCEU was not working. It was failing. We needed a reset. I enjoyed Black Adam, but clearly if you want a 10-year, 20-year plan, that was not going to work. That was a 5-year plan at max. That was not a long-term strategy. And then you look at James Gunn's career, there really isn't any bad work. He's just a very impressive director, thinker, creator. But back to you and back to Aaron, you guys have gone at it for, I would say, maybe the last year or so. Yeah. Now, he is someone who is of the restore the Snyderverse camp, but recently, and this is where a disagreement I have with him, is he actually said that he wants Superman to fail. That's a personal disagreement I have with him. I think you should hope for the best, and both in quality and in outcome. But how did you arrive at this feud and a rivalry with Aaron? What are your thoughts looking back? And what do you think is going to happen if Superman does well?
Well, it's really interesting. So this is kind of where everything blew up for my channel last year, was from this feud where it started. And it was very, very unintentional for everything to blow up, because I got to a point where a couple years ago, I was just in the Snyder fandom, and I was just so sick and tired of the toxicity. Very sick and tired of the toxicity that was being flung around everywhere. And this is when I was still part of Bridging the Geekdoms. I didn't start SLAV's Free Talk yet, and I was still in Bridging the Geekdoms. And there were a couple other outlets that were, just throwing lies out there, misinformation, hyping people up for things that just weren't coming. And I would be on social media, and I would be like, what are you talking? Like, stop it. Stop hyping up. You're just, fueling the fire and the toxicity. Just stop it. And they weren't responding. So I would make a video on Bridging the Geekdoms like, this person is fueling the fire, this needs to stop, and that kind of stuff. And it didn't really do anything. Nothing, like that channel wasn't growing or anything like that. And I was just like, you know what? Whatever. I'm done doing that kind of stuff. But it just kept nagging me. So once I started SLAV's Free Talk, like I said, I was doing all pop culture. It wasn't just DC. I was doing everything: Star Wars, Marvel, DC, video games, everything like that. And the video I did in July of last year wasn't even the first video I did on Aaron. I did one prior to that, and it didn't grab his attention or anybody's attention, that first one. And I was like, okay, it's going to be just like it was on Bridging the Geekdoms, whatever. And in July, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was one of those things where I saw his video, and I was just like, what is he saying? Like, he was just ragging on James Gunn and DC, and I'm like, how can you not be excited about what's coming? Like, you know, filming is just about to wrap, and the behind the scenes footage or images, the leaked images look cool. Like, this is exciting time. This is an exciting time to be a DC fan. And he was just talking a whole bunch of crap on everything. But it wasn't that he was just talking crap. It was that he was spreading lies and misinformation. All this misinformation that he was spreading to his viewers and telling them things that just weren't true. And that's where I've always come from, because I don't care. You can have an opinion. You can hate whatever you want to hate. You can love whatever you want to love. That's your opinion. I can't, like, what's it my place to say otherwise, you know? But whenever you're going to sit there and start spreading misinformation, lies, and all that kind of stuff to, you know, rile up people, that's where I'm kind of like, oh, come on, man, don't do that.
When you say misinformation, are you referring about the project? Are you referring to Superman? Are you referring to DC? I know this was a year ago, so
yeah, like
nowhere.
It's like DC and James Gunn and things like that. Like, it's all about like that whole aspect. It was all about, again, the last year that stuff was, I don't remember what it was.
Pre-production. I mean, during production.
So it was during production.
Now we're in post-production, and you guys are still going at it. Almost, I would say, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, whether it's on YouTube or X. And right now, it's basically, my understanding, your feud comes down to one camp, Aaron's camp, wants Superman to fail and thinks it's going to be a bad movie.
Yeah.
Two things. You want it to do well. You're praying it's doing well. You're not putting money on it, but you're hoping it's going to do well, and you want it to be a good movie.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, Aaron and I, we actually had, after the initial video, and then I did a third video, which was actually really funny. It was a kind of like a parody video. I did a video where I recreated in Photoshop his background and put it behind me. And then I did the opening where, you know, he goes, welcome back, everybody. And here's another DC, whatever he says. Like, I did it like word for word. And I did like the opening just like he does. And he was talking about the Superman suit and how terrible the Superman suit is. But I just did the opposite and how great the Superman suit is. So it was hilarious. I even like did a similar thumbnail. It wasn't exact. Like, it wasn't like, things were similar, but it was not exact. It was a different logo. It was a different font. It was different colors, but it was similar enough. And he got so angry at it, like so angry. He actually reported it to YouTube for copyright infringement. It was like crazy what how mad he got about it. So then he like reached out to me. He's like, I want to talk to you just one-on-one, you and me. And then we talked, and honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, outside of the whole DC stuff, he seems like a pretty cool guy.
Like I said, I follow him because I'm a fan of him. So trust me, I get it. I have no question that he's a cool guy, because he's a cool guy. But obviously, the differences in perspective are vast.
Yeah. So, but after that, like, we've pretty much gone back and forth nonstop on social media and stuff like that. And, you know, it's one of those things. It's kind of, it's more humorous now than anything. You know, it's when a news story breaks, I automatically will check and see what he has to say about it, because I want to see how ridiculous his take is. You know, and sometimes I will pull it up on my stream just to say, look how ridiculous his take is, you know, because it is ridiculous most of the time. Like, it's like, come on, man, like, what are you doing? Like, come on. And then it's funny because his fans are like, oh, there he goes again. There goes SLAV. He's calling it. He's pointing out Aaron's, you know, take. It's like, well, first off, I do point out everybody else's, you know, other people's takes too, but I do point out Aaron's because it's kind of funny now. Like, it's gone to a point where it's kind of humorous, because he, you know, his takes are kind of ridiculous. And we had this little back and forth, and I think it's kind of fun. I will admit, I think it's kind of fun to have this back and forth with him. Now there are times I will admit that I will get a little animated, heated. I don't know. Sometimes, like
Flustered.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And that would, like, the other day I got a little flustered and called him out. And I was like, oh, look at this 50-year-old man, something like that. I said something mean, and I probably shouldn't have. I probably went a little too far, but it's one of those things. It's kind of like it can be fun sometimes, and sometimes it goes a little far. And he took it far one time, I took it far. It is what it is. We're all human, but. Yes. No, it comes down to it. We each want something different from this movie, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Because if the movie is successful, I want to see what his reaction is going to be. I do. There's a lot of people in that fandom get their information from these certain scoopers that are out there. And I don't say scoopers, that all of a sudden think that they know what they're talking about. And they'll sit there and say, oh, this movie needs to, they can't, finagle these numbers. It has to get great numbers. It has to do this. It has to do that. First off, they don't know what they're talking about. And I won't say hate, but I really dislike scoopers. I really dislike them. And because they just make stuff up all the time. And specifically, there's a couple of them out there that when it comes to DC especially, they think they are like up here. They know everything, and they specifically, they were big during the Snyderverse.
Some of them are mad at James Gunn.
Yeah, it's well, some of them have a right to be mad at James Gunn, I will say that, but it's because he's called them out, which is, hey, I'm glad that he did, because he should have, but they have a right to be mad because he called them out, so I'll give him that. But
let me ask you about one specific claim that Aaron made, because I do think this is a good point, and I haven't heard others mention it, because we don't know what the budget for Superman is.
Correct.
But according to Aaron, he has discovered tax documents that show a potential budget. I think he said, could be wrong, in the 300 millions, right? Something
364 million.
Okay, so what is that true? Is he onto something, or is this a misrepresentation of data that's available?
So back when they started shooting, or shortly after they started shooting in Cleveland, some tax documents popped up for $364 million for tax purposes that came about. James Gunn debunked that on social media. Now, I will say, and I don't know how much you're versed in all this kind of stuff, budgets for movies can be astronomical. They can be. I mean, I think Rise of Skywalker's budget was actually like $500 million, but due to tax incentives and cuts and things like that happened, it ended up being around $300 million because of all the incentives that they got from shooting in different locations. So it's very possible that Superman could have a budget of $300+ million, but because they shot in Cleveland, because they shot in different places, that tax incentives could bring that cost down.
Now, I want to take a brief moment and apologize to Aaron. I unfortunately made a mistake. I reached out to him the very day I interviewed SLAV to see if he had any questions for him. I apologize, Aaron. I should have reached out to you earlier. By the time I got your question, I already interviewed SLAV. That was my fault. Just know you're always welcome on the show. As you know, I'm a fan of your channel. I personally would also love to host a town hall between you and SLAV to discuss the future of the DC universe on either of your channels or anyone's channel. I recommend everyone to follow both of these accounts, SLAV from SLAV's Free Talk and Aaron Fischer from my review, Aaron Fischer. If you're a fan of DC content, get the perspective from different sides and enjoy thoughtful debate between DC fans. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Comment below. Are you excited for Superman, or do you think the DCU is headed in the wrong direction?